Oh yeah, we've got to keep Carrie employed in parks. That's for sure.
I think it's more we have to keep the people happy.
So is Doug a member of the public? Hi, Doug. Can you mute and maybe identify yourself so we know who you are? Maybe you're representing a municipality. We're not too sure. So we do have a member of the public on here too, Joe. So since we don't have a quorum, we'll give it maybe another 5 or 10 minutes, and then we have to adjourn.
I don't recall offhand what the statutory time is that we have to wait to achieve quorum. Maybe Joe knows, or Craig.
I think Joe's just trying to call out and ask.
So I'll take a look.
Yeah,
he's just trying to talk.
Yeah, I think there's no real limit. We wait for quorum. I think but I don't think we wait too long.
No.
Okay, thanks.
So, my computer is frozen and I cannot get to the staff directory, to the director's directory to get Leonard's phone number, but I'm just going to go back in and see if it's working.
Joe, I can probably look that up right now. Because I believe that Angela actually sent the updated one as of yesterday, so it's in an email. So
it's okay. I've got it, Carrie.
Okay.
Hello, Leonard? Hi, it's Joe Kiriko phoning. All right. Walter and Leah, Leonard will be able to join in 10. He's just finishing another meeting. Is that okay?
That's fine. I can work with
I'm good with that. Yeah.
Okay, great. I would love to be able to talk to you about this format of meetings and see if this is something we can get on a regular basis.
I'm still here, but I don't think you need to watch me reading.
That's fine. Alana. So the committee members that would be here will be Leonard Keesley, New Denver, Walter Popoff, Area H, and Leah Main, Silverton.
Got it.
And we'll consider that Jess, as director, that Director Lund is away and not able to attend. So
3 and a 4.
Alana, can you watch for Leonard when he joins? Can you just make everyone aware?
Yes, I can keep an eye on it.
Great. Thanks, Alana. So Alana, like this will be the first time that this committee has met formally in this format, so that probably is a little bit of the confusion this morning.
It happens. It happens.
So just to let you know about the quorum, according to the rules here, it says if there is no quorum of the board present within 30 minutes of the scheduled time for a board meeting, the chief administrative officer or corporate officer must record the names of the member present and postpone the meeting until the next scheduled meeting. So we can wait 30 minutes, and committees and commissions only follow the procedures of the board.
Okay.
It applies to them also. So we've got 30 minutes here to get a quorum.
Okay, great. Thank you. And I would expect that Leonard to be joining momentarily here.
So I would expect that if Jessica cannot attend, that her alternate can attend.
Yeah, I would expect that as well. Because it's a committee of the
Yeah, and I don't
so
know who her
alternates
alternate.
You don't know who it is?
Yeah, I don't know who it is.
Uh,
I'd have to go and
I think it's
where would
Ezra
I find
Buller.
that?
I think it's Ezra Buller.
Okay,
that is correct,
I
Leah.
don't know if you've got a number for it. Do we have his contact information, Joe?
I do. It is 355-2473.
So do you want to call him and
I
see if he can attend?
will give a call. I've never met Ezra. So. So, oh, sorry, I was on mute, was I not? Oh, good.
Yes, you
uh,
were.
the regional district had the wrong. There's Leonard. So if everybody can, if we could we'll just do, Alana, if you want to just do roll call, make sure that everybody's voice and everything works. Walter, the RDCK phone list is incorrect. I got, oh, sorry, the former alternate, Walter, is the phone number they have for Ezra. So I have to get that, let RDCK know to change that.
Okay, so just the
So
committee
we
one?
have no representation.
Yeah, and that's, we still have quorum though. So Alana, go ahead with roll call. I think Leah is still with us.
Okay, so we've got committee member Casely.
Yep.
Thank you. Committee member Main
Yes, I'm here. Thank you.
and committee member Popov.
Yes, I'm here.
And then Joe
Here.
and Carrie Gaynor,
There.
Craig Stanley,
Good morning.
and Trisha Davison.
Good morning.
And I'm Alana.
So I'm not sure if everyone is aware of this type of committee. So the regional district has a bylaw which created services committees, and so this is the first time that we've called this together. Now, I just want to give this a little bit of a preamble. When we set this up, we actually didn't have the RDCK public budget meeting schedule. So we were trying to have this occur before that, so that you actually had an opportunity as the directors for most of these services to have that conversation about the budgets overall. So the one thing that we are finding is that um, this type of a service committee actually can be actually a little bit more powerful than our old recreation or park commission formats, because you actually get to see, for one thing, that our park commissions don't even look at all the parks. So we actually don't have a place to interact with the directors about the budget impacts in a formal way where you can actually make recommendations to the board. This allows that to happen. And I want to point out it's just an interesting convergence right now. There's also the discussion about a reading center in New Denver. This type of a format, this type of a meeting would allow that conversation to be brought forward in a formal political forum of the majority of participants to have that type of a discussion about service. In that case, that would be a new service, or even service expansions, or where we want to see significant service changes. So that is what this is. So this meeting format right now operates continuously in Caslow and Area D. And of course, the longest running commission has been in Creston with Creston A, B, and C. But it's something that we're seeing, quite honestly, that may be a better format for much of the work that we do, especially when it comes to impacting budgets. So that's that part. But as it is the first meeting of the year, but for technically the first meeting ever, I do have to do the nomination of a chair. And so we'll follow that regular process that we do, which is calling for nominations 3 times. So calling for nominations a first time.
think Walter would be great at it.
Walter, do you accept the nomination?
Since it's going to be a short term, yes, I do.
Calling for nominations a second time. And calling for nominations a third time. Walter, thank you. You are the chair of the Slocan Valley Services Committee.
Well, thank you for nominating me, Leonard. And when I look at our bylaw, we now have to acclaim the chair. And then, Joe, that's your duty.
Oh.
And then we continue on and we call for a vice chair.
Is that, sorry, we don't have vice chairs at the other two commissions, but if we want to do that, we can do that.
It's in the bylaw. We can choose
okay.
not to have one, but it's a decision of the directors here.
Sorry, I was a little bit informal, but Joe Kierk, as General Manager of Community Services, I ratify that Director Walter Parfop as Chair for the Slocan Valley Services Committee for 2025.
No, we have to destroy the ballots. A little bit of humor here. Dry, maybe. Okay, so as chair, we've got an agenda here. The bylaw indicates that we should basically elect a vice chair. But if other committees don't have a vice chair, then by majority of the directors here, a motion to bypass electing a vice chair.
I so move. I think we
So
can do
moved.
without a vice chair.
And seconded.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Anybody opposed? Seeing no opposition, be reflected in the minutes that the committee decided not to elect the vice chair at this time. So moving right along here. We acknowledge and respect the Indigenous peoples within whose traditional lands we are meeting today. And a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
Moved by Director Casely, seconded by Director Main. Any question on the agenda or any additions that anybody would like to add? Seeing none. Anybody opposed to adoption of the agenda? Seeing no opposition, the agenda is adopted. Since we did not have any minutes or any meetings before, so we will bypass receipt of the minutes. And then staff reports, and we'll turn it over to staff to start item 6.1, budget presentation.
Thank you. And
Joe, whoever is going to take that, go for it.
Yeah, through the chair. I'll begin the budget presentation, but if there's questions, you may get answers from Craig, Tricia, or Carrie, just to make you aware. But we're here definitely to fill in. So last night you would have seen the slides if everybody was at the RDCK budget meeting last night. Again, Leonard, before when we had set this meeting up, we were hoping to have this meeting before you had the public budget meeting, but you did have that, so you've seen part of the presentation. I just wanted to know if you want me to go through those slides, if there was anything in particular from last night that you want to go over in the major projects that were presented.
Me, no, it's fine.
Okay.
Actually, Joe, we did not delve into each individual budget. So I don't know if Leonard or or Leah would like to go through each individual budget so we know where they're at. I mean, we've seen the overall budget, but you've got them broken down to, service, S200, draft financial plan, etc. So maybe for the benefit of all of us, it might be useful to go through them all. Or do you want to do the preamble that you've got on your first slide about the services that we're part of?
Yeah, so through the chair, it was just that I was not going to go through the slides you saw last night, but I will bring up each individual budget and go through them. Okay.
Okay, so are you going to go through the park highlights as you have on the agenda, etc.?
Yeah, so I'll go through that really quickly and follow the agenda here.
Good.
I believe you should be able to see my screen. Thanks, Leonard. All right. So we'll just go up to the top here. So and I just want to make sure, like, what's changed in regional parks in the Slocan Valley is that regional parks are now funded out of two different services. And so just want to make sure, it's always a good point just to start to make sure everybody knows the lay of the land. So in service S203, that has 5 regional parks. And this year, and by all means, if there's more detailed on these projects, just ask, and then Carrie can definitely fill that in. But at Crescent Valley Beach, we are adding in an accessible trail. Galena, we have the installation of a bridge over the second trail slough. And to note that we've done many upgrades over on that trail over the last number of years. Roseberry Parkland, probably the largest piece of that is working with the community on the fuel mitigation. Bigelow Bay, basically it's what we completed last year, which was the washroom and some trail enhancement. And as we saw, there was a special thanks to the Roseberry Parkland Committee. And please just, if there's any questions, just break into the presentation. So in the other regional parks that are in the Slocan Valley in general is Campbell Field. And so Campbell Field is it's a large 8-acre space right next to Mount Sentinel School. So as Carrie, it's mostly maintenance work there. Although we do have extensive Campbell Field planning work that we have done, what may be the best use of Campbell Field still really may revolve around a larger partnership with Castlegar Nelson, areas E, F, I, and J. So they're in the middle of some facility service enhancement planning. So Campbell Field is right now, everybody is aware of it, but we're not pursuing any particular aspect of that planning at the moment until those other processes are complete. Crestova is the large park acquisition of 2023, I believe. It's starting to get a little bit hazy. Might have been 2022. But that is, Mark, could you close that door? Sorry. Sorry, thanks, Mark. Crestova is the large park up in the Crestova area. And that was what's unique about that park is that in the community raised the majority of funding to purchase that park and organize that very quickly. Old schoolhouse. So the old schoolhouse, if you were driving into Nelson from the valley, you would have noticed there used to be a building that had a great big yoga banner on it at one point in time. That no longer exists. But what's very exciting is that the community there right now is raising funding to build a pavilion on top of the old basement and foundation works at that site, and actively working, changing that site into a park. So that's we're getting some great support from the community there. The other piece for parks and the high level piece is to note that the regional parks and trail access strategy, we're expecting that to be complete and to the board in the fall of 2025. What is important about that work is that it'll be the first time where there'll be some things like park classification frameworks laid out, definitely some policy work, and that it will be, I think, actually probably but will result in much discussion at the board. So there is going to be some real challenging and I think deep conversations that will need to take place at the board about what the park strategy is presenting. The programming piece. So remember that there are 2 recreation services in the valley. There's Area H South, which is just Area H, and there's the northern service, which the participants are Area H, Silverton, and New Denver. So the services are different in that S231 has got now large park services in it as well, but the course offerings across all of the pieces are going to be similar. So the one thing to note, like for example, swim lessons, there will be swim to survive courses up in Area H this year. But those are really going to be a shared course because in reality, we bring together everybody usually to Slocan to run that course. But summer camps were the beginning last year. Those ran successfully in the southern pros part of the area. One of the big challenges is instructor recruitment. No, Leonard, and Leah and Walter, as you know, that's been a piece around the New Denver Gymnasium and offering maybe some more programs there. What we do find is that as we've had to formalize commissions beyond what they were formal before, people instructing programs in the way that maybe we're required to under CRA sometimes proves to be a little bit difficult in the valley, but we are trying to step up instructor recruitment efforts. So S231 sees a very modest increase, but S229 this year does have in it a requisition increase of 8.9%. Note that that's $4,253. Some of that was actually projected in the previous financial plan, and really that is coming down to use, but it is, to the decreasing surplus that we had from COVID, but also there has been an increasing expectation on how especially the fitness center gymnasium is to operate. And so, this is a place where it would be good to get some political feedback on that. And go ahead.
Do you want to comment as we go?
As we go, yes, absolutely.
Okay, so I know there is some dissatisfaction in the community with the way that the gymnasium is being run now. That access for groups and for group teaching has been virtually cut off. And so we have groups that historically have been able to use the gym for, for teaching, for classes, for group fitness kinds of things. If it's at all formal, they no longer can do that. And so there's very dissatisfaction around that. And so I think we need to look at that piece again at the commission level and take notice of the responses we've been getting throughout the community, even though people tend to not sit down and write a letter in or an email. I know the dissatisfaction is there because I hear it from people directly. So I think that's something that we really do need to address and need to address sooner rather than later. Even though the budgets basically are set by now, politically we need to address that, and not just politically in the sort of cover your ass kind of sense, but we need to give a genuine response to the community and to the needs of the community.
And I know that at the commission table right now, one of the topics is Trisha's got quite an extensive report for the commission on Tuesday. But I think the one thing that we do need to understand, that as local government, formality is required. And that sometimes is a tough transition. But unfortunately, it is something that we do not get to turn a blind eye to. So one of the services that you share is the cemetery service. And so this is between New Denver, Silverton, and Area H. There we go. Is that big enough to see on the screen, or would you like me just to make it a little bit bigger?
You can make it a little bit bigger. It'd be
Okay.
nice.
Thanks, Leonard. It's not doing it. Come on.
I was trying, but unsuccessful.
There, how's that? Perfect. So this is one of the services that you share. The grant has been stable. Stable hasn't changed in a bit, and I didn't know if there was any reason to have a conversation about this service or any input that we should be considering.
Well, there's actually quite a bit we should be considering on this. It's one of the things on our plate, but we just had too much stuff on our plate to even address this one, and it seems to get left behind. We have to address the part of the fees because we are not anywhere near charging what everyone else is even close to, and that's got to be addressed. Because what we're seeing is people recognizing that and then wanting to be buried here because it is so cheap compared to everywhere else. So I think there's a bigger conversation there. But that is something, if we're going to have these meetings and stuff, this would be great, and have this conversation before budget time for next year so that we actually have a real plan. Because it's a moot point at this point.
Okay, so that's through to, because Leonard, is the challenge, like, are the expenses to is the cemetery being able to be maintained at the level that it does need to through the taxation piece and the fee piece, or is that becoming a particular strain?
It is a strain. Our staff we're under a union contract. We have increases every year, which are not reflected in this. It's just been one of them projects that staff has on their plate that we haven't been able to address. And that sustainable, as you've mentioned, the price has been the same, but our wage increase for our staff to go there and do the servicing it needs. The village of New Denver has just basically been subsidizing it just because we haven't been able to get our act together to get this proposal put together and put in front of everyone so that that's sustainable. I mean, the old way we used to do it is we used to go out to contract for maintenance service and everything else, and that was proving challenging with having to have insurance and finding people to do it. So that created a bigger problem, and it's just one of them things that we just keep going along with.
Oh, and through the chair, um, one of the things where this really works well, and so I'll try and give you a flavor of what happens at the other commission tables. So in this case, like for example, Creston has a very large cemetery service there, and not that this isn't large, but what through this type of a table, the committee a number of years ago did a cemetery master plan, and they did that work because they had the same thing. Fees were not the cemetery finances just were not adding up to the long-term commitments required provincially for operating a cemetery. So they did, and they had those kinds of discussions. And the town in that case, like in this case, runs the cemetery, but comes to this committee and presents those things, presents what the budget is, what those challenges are, so that we don't have a service that is just, to Director Casely's point, is just carrying on, but is actually not solving the issue of the actual service. So it could be definitely something that if you want, that you ask for us to put on the next agenda for this, and to invite the town to do a presentation at that, so that we don't wait until next year at this time. So if you want to do that at any point in the discussion, please feel free to say to add a topic to the next agenda.
Yeah, I will.
Yeah, so if I may,
Go ahead, Walter.
yeah,
Sorry.
if I may, yeah, again, yeah, I've got my dog going bananas here, but
I would welcome having that discussion and having more granular information from New Denver as to what the real costs are, so that we can approach it from a point of reality and not just wishful thinking.
yeah, so what I'm looking at, Leah and Leonard, is you're familiar with the TV Society. They were not happy being stagnant at a certain rate or whatever, and they wanted an increase. So I would say probably something similar to that. If your council gets together and do a presentation for the next services meeting or whatever, we can accommodate that in the budget. And I do realize that being there, exactly what you said, the amount has to increase. And since New Denver is the municipality that's looking after the cemetery, we need something there. But I guess a question would go to Joe: is it a little bit late to put it in the budget for 2025?
Through the chair, if you were to make a recommendation,
or Leonard, or can you?
Through the chair, if you were to make a recommendation at this meeting, then it could be included in the 2025 financial plan. I don't know if I lost you, Walter.
So I guess a question to Leonard. I'm still here, so I heard you. So a question to Leonard is: do you think your council will be able to come up with something, in the near future? I mean, like, this issue should have probably been addressed a long time ago, like you mentioned, but it wasn't.
Yeah, and I mean that's on us. We just haven't had the time. We've been focusing on other things, and this has just been put off to the side. I don't know if we'd have time even yet. Staff still has to finish the big projects, and we're just had some staff changes and stuff, so it presented challenges I've worked on. I started a file on this actually issue from around surrounding areas. It'd be nice to see what Creston is. I didn't realize Creston was doing the same thing, so I'll reach out to Creston and get some information. But I mean, for this year, we've already pretty much set our budget so I think we'll just go with it for this year, and over our next meeting, and so that we're set for the next budget year, then we're ready to go. Because I think there's a lot of conversations that we need to have. Is like, what are the rest of you guys? What's your vision of it? Where we need to really step up in the reserves for the looking after of it, because we don't, as we need to maybe expand some of the area. We've been riding on areas where it's flat, it's not a problem, but coming pretty soon, we're going to need to develop some more of that area, and that's going to be a cost. And like, there's quite a bit to it, unfortunately. And so I appreciate that, Walter, but I just don't see staff getting time to get this ready. We have to finish our big water projects that have to be done. Their grant timeframes are running out quickly.
Okay, so if we leave it off for New Denver to work on it and do a presentation to this committee, for inclusion in the budget for next year for 2026, is that okay, Leonard?
That would be great. I would really appreciate that.
Okay, so I don't know, Joe, like on this, do we need resolutions in here or not? Or how are the other services committee run? It just should be noted in the minutes of the thing that, Village of New Denver will be addressing this, the underfunded cemetery service to be inputted in the budget for 2026.
Yeah, so through the chair, just as direction to staff to invite the Village of New Denver to present on the New Denver Cemetery at the next Slocan Valley Services Committee.
I would move that.
Sounds good. So be it. Let it be recorded in the minutes. Or okay, and I would second that. And anybody opposed? No opposition. Carry. Okay, go forward, Joe.
And so
I
sometimes
hope
there
you don't
may
mind
be,
me using first names rather than director.
it's okay. We do that at
Yeah.
the other services committees as well.
Like I said, yeah.
So-
I think it's a very informal committee. We'll just use our first names rather than Director Main or Director Casely or Director Popoff or whatever. Go ahead, Joe. Sorry.
Yeah, so through the chair, just to even though you may not be a participant in every service, so just so you know, this happens at the other service committees as well, but it's still good to know for the other directors to be aware of the other services that are happening. So in this case, this is the Public Library Area H. This service contributes to the Nelson Public Library, but there is an arrangement through that some of that funding goes to Castlegar as well. But as you're talking about there's been some chatter about the discussion of a reading center and possibly a contribution to the Village of Nakusp Library to do that. This is a formal chance to possibly provide, if you want regional district staff to be working on something in that formality. It doesn't have to be today, but this is the type of thing that you can bring forward in this commission so that work can be done formally and is transparent to the public that we are doing that we're actually considering the possibility of setting up a service like that.
Yeah, so right now, I through the chair there, Walter. right now they're having discussions. They're looking at all kinds of different alternatives, which is I think they finally done 2 years of research and come up with a pretty reasonable plan. So I think there'll be something coming forward, and this would be a great. I like this format actually. To be true, Joe. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And we could bring it forward on there with that and it won't be until it'll take a year or two, I'm sure, but how we move forward and we see what it looks like.
So
Yeah,
through the
so
chair,
if I may, Joe, Colin Moss is working on, and I've been part of that committee that Colin Moss is working on. And when they're ready, they can bring this up at our services committee meeting, basically directing staff to start their work on it when Colin Moss and as they're talking to the cusp, when they've got everything ready, they'll bring it forward.
yeah, and so through the chair, that's one of the things that you could bring forward here, and so just it's important for Colin to be aware that he has this forum to then add that as an agenda item.
Okay, great, thanks.
No problem. And just through to Walter, no changes, correct? To S200.
I just have a question.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
that S200?
just to let you know.
Yeah, I notice a noticeable increase of from 2024 to 2025, and again, a $3,000 lift going into 2026. So, could you just briefly explain why the increase is that robust over time?
I'll take that one, Joe.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll take that one on that one because there was a referendum a few years ago participating, rural areas participating with the city of Nelson, and it was E, F, and H. And the referendum was defeated in area E, F, and H participated in that service, and it was for provision of basic library service for area H up to the boundary of Slocan. And everything south of Slocan is the defined area for taxation. And there has been minimal increases, basically a 2% for wages increases almost on a yearly basis. And this year they've expanded their services that they want to provide, et cetera. And their requisition was for an 18% increase in taxation. So there was negotiations done between Area F and Area H and the library with the help of Manager Shiriko and our Chief Financial Officer, Yev. We've decided to do a substantial increase. What I mean by a substantial increase, a 6% increase from 2024 to 2025, and then ongoing a 3% increase till the end of the budget. So the library did not get their 18% increase because it was it was a drastic increase in taxation.
Yeah. Okay.
And
Thank
if you
you.
want to add anything, Joe, go ahead.
No, through the chair, and that's why some of these conversations are important to have. Even with an agreement between the regional district and the City of Nelson Public Library Board. So like when we say it's the Nelson Public Library, it is a separate board from council. It is very important to carefully detail the service level that you're expecting, and that they carefully detail in realistic ways what the cost of that service level is. It's very important to go in on the same understanding, or else we can get into that point of where one party in this case maybe thought that they could expand the service level without the required political consent to do so, which led to the request.
Thank you. I'm I realize it's not a service that Silverton participates in or pays into, but I appreciate having a better understanding of how it is determined and how our neighbors down south pay for it. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah.
So this is
And good question, Leah, because with New Denver considering of a library service, or it's just something to note when you're thinking about a library service that eventually there will be increases in taxation as we go forward. Okay, go ahead, Joe.
yeah, and through the chair. So now this is regional parks. So this is S203. So this is everyone that is here is a participant in this service. As per the presentation, I believe this was 3.7%, if I remember correctly. I don't have a note on that right here, but want to particularly note that we are working on prior year surplus. Quite a bit in terms of funding this service, and that would change next year. There may be a surplus depending upon project completion, but we'd have broken this budget down into the work orders so that you can see that. Would you like us to go through that, the work orders and the work that's planned for Carrie and Craig to take you through that part of this service? Walter, you're on mute.
I'll leave it to Leonard or Lee if you want Joe to go through that. I'm quite familiar with that myself, so go ahead, Leonard.
No, I follow it. So, I mean, I'm not sure if Leah would like some more clarification on it. I don't see anything that jumps out at me.
No, I'm good. I think the big conversation is going to be going into 2026 budget when we no longer have the prior year surplus to add into it. But for now, I'm happy with what I've got and what I understand.
Okay.
Thanks.
And
Joe,
through the chair, so this
oh.
might be something, and Carrie, let you
Yeah.
go through the chair here in a sec. This might be something so that maybe this is where the budgeting process for this is in some ways similar to the New Denver Cemetery in a way. If we hold this type of a meeting in the fall, we can get some of this stuff discussed before we get to this crunch point of the year. Through the chair, if it's okay, I think Carrie had some additional.
Yep, if that's okay, Walter, through the chair. I just wanted to quickly explain, and there's maybe a slight change, although it won't change necessarily requisition. And that is just so everybody understands. So the bridge that we're working on right now on the Galena Trail, it was identified by the engineers when we did a study that there were two areas of slough that we're quite worried about. We have smaller bridges over them right now, but they continue to kind of grow. So we completed the one last year, which seems to have been very successful. Well, I know it's very successful, but even from the comments from the public, they're very happy with it. The second one this year is actually quite a bit longer. It's about 85 feet, not 60 feet. And that's to get to where the engineer has described stable ground. So in the budget currently, I had $72,000, and this was an estimate at the time of us going through. Joe, I think it's on page. If you go down, you'll see it. It says page 1 on the thing, but I know it's not. And you'll see the.
So, Carrie, which work order do you want me to go to? The
Yep,
capital project.
It's capital 1390.
Here we are.
Yeah. So I had that estimated at $72,000. The work we've been doing right now, we are we're just getting the final actuals to that, and it is going to be slightly more than that. And my suggestion to that would be that it may be about $18,000 more, and a lot of that has to do with the shipping that wasn't included originally, and the bridge being a little bit longer and the type that we're having to do. It'll have to come in two pieces, not one, because they can't actually deliver and or have a bridge that long that they could ship. So looking at the sort of completed amount, so my suggestion would be, as we do have about $110,000 sitting in our reserves, and we're contributing $10,000 this year, that we potentially take off the $10,000 that we would be providing to reserve, and then maybe take an extra 10 out of reserve, and then that would not change requisition, but it would cover the total cost of the bridge. To note, I am working with corporate administration on potential MIA grant for a little bit and some other options there as well. But that's kind of what we've come up with at this point. Is that would be the total cost to get an 85-foot, which is quite long, bridge to stable ground. And again, we're looking at probably about a 25-year to 30 years of not having to worry about it again.
And that would not affect the requisition for this year, is that correct?
Correct. So if what Carrie's suggesting is that we amend the budget to decrease the contribution to reserve to zero. And so we're going to increase the capital expenditures, Carrie, to $90,000. Is that correct?
Yeah, through the chair, I suggest 92 just to as a plus minus is a little bit. Yeah.
So if the committee will pass for your consideration to pass a recommendation to increase capital expenditures in cap 1390 to $92,000 to be funded by reducing reserve contribution and increasing contribution from reserve. We will then make the changes to the financial plan so that it's reflected at the budget in March, and it will not impact requisition.
I would be prepared to move that.
I'll second that.
Leonard seconds that. Okay, anybody opposed to that? Seeing no opposition, passed.
Great, thank you.
Okay, go ahead.
All right, so we're going to go through the ones that I'm flipping through right now are all just the detailed work orders in S203. There we go. This is another service. I don't know if it's been discussed. We don't have good, I would say that I don't have particularly good communication with the ski hill. And I'm not saying that I'm just saying that I don't have communication with the ski hill. So I make sure you don't want this to come out round. But it hasn't been discussed, and this is a little bit unique because not only is it Silverton, New Denver, and H, but it's also Area K and the cusp. So these are sometimes the type of services that don't get discussed, and sometimes for the group or the society that may be running something, they actually don't have a place to come and discuss what's going well or what's not going well. But if this committee thought, you know what, this would be nice to hear from this group, hear how they're doing, we could arrange this type of a services committee. You can invite the representatives from the CUSP and Area K to that meeting, give them freedom of the floor and have a discussion and be able at least maybe to hear back. Is the program successful? Is it not successful? Those types of things.
If I may, Walter?
Yeah.
Thank you. I think it would be great to hear from them and to have that discussion with them and the NACUSP representative. This goes back to, I recall, Director Paul Peterson bringing this forward many years ago, early on in my tenure on regional district, and it is just it's an annual $20,000 that was what we were asked to consider and pass and contribute on a yearly basis. I recall one time, I believe they came to us and said something untoward had happened. Would we be willing to make a larger contribution that year? And I think it was just dealt with through rural director grant contributions. It's great that we could just, pay $20,000 a year and that's it. But I don't think that's realistic. I think the Hill is going to run into difficulties by having their budget so severely limited. This is of huge benefit to not just to the community at large, but to the schools and the school children who do a certain amount of their physical education on the ski hill. They develop some, really important skills for living in areas like this. So I would really like to hear from them and see what we can come up with as a plan going into the future.
So through the
So
chair,
you want to make a motion that we extend an invite to
Yes.
the ski hill after we pass the budget in 2026 for, and give them freedom of the floor.
Yeah, I would move that.
I'll second that.
And I would second that. Okay, good, Leonard. Any opposition? So just to recap on that, it's an invite to Ski Hill administration to come and talk about the Ski Hill in 2026. And to expand on what Leah said, I don't know whether it was Director Weatherhead or Peterson when they approached for an invite. I think it was Director Peterson. We did. Director Peterson provided a community development grant, and so did Area H provide a community grant to satisfy their project that they were doing at that time. So that stabilized the requisition at 20,000. And if they do a presentation, be prepared for request an increase in requisition from the participants.
Yeah, through the chair, this is one of those services.
Okay, it's been moved, seconded, and passed.
And through the chair, this is one of
Yeah,
those
sorry,
services.
Joe. It's been seconded and passed.
Perfect. This is one of those services where the requisition is maxed, and so actually every year they're actually getting less grant money than they did the first time.
So, just a question, Joe. What when we went to referendum, I can't remember the max amount we were allowed to tax for.
20,000.
It was plain and simple 20,000.
20,000.
Oh, okay. So I guess I know that some other services we build in a little bit of a cushion so that we can do that. So wouldn't we have to then go back to a referendum?
No, so through the chair, well, it depends. I guess I would say, but there is avenues through the municipal act that allows directors with letters of consent to increase a maximum requisition. It's limited. I believe it's 20 or 25%. I can't, but you do have that ability. And always to remember that although you increase the maximum requisition limit, you have control at the budget level. But you do have that ability to make that adjustment. So for example, if this was something that you wanted to have in place by after this meeting, it would be important to meet with the Ski Hill Society quickly, because any changes for 2026 to do that would need to get into corporate administration's work plans to do that work on the budget amendments. The bylaw amendments.
Okay, that's great. Or we could just all put it on Nakas, Bill.
Yeah.
The
Don't worry,
bylaw
I would
doesn't
tell Tom that.
The bylaw doesn't do that.
Oh, lucky for him.
So since it's an RDCK contribution service, we went through that with the library in Nelson. So, and the intent is, to invite them and have a chat about it, see where they are. And if they figure they need an increase or whatever, and as you mentioned, Joe, we're allowed a 25% increase without going back to referendum on it. We can just amend the bylaw to allow a 25% increase over a 5-year period. Is generally what happens. And it doesn't mean that 25% increase takes effect in the first year. It'll be over the 5-year period of the financial plan. That's my understanding. But when we invite them, and I'll trust Joe will do the research and see what we're allowed to do.
I have a question. If we decide to do a 25% over 5 years, even that is 5% a year, given the financial and political climate right now, could we not go use an alternate approval process, which would give us a bit more buy-in from the community than simply doing a bylaw amendment?
Yes, so through the chair, you just have you do have that, you would have that option as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and frankly, Leah, we don't have to do a 5% increase every year. It's an amending bylaw. The maximum we can, contribute is 25%. We can do a 2% or 0%.
Okay, thank you, Walter.
Yeah, so through the chair, the two pieces are different. So one is a bylaw amendment, the others are budget decisions. All right, S229. Again, completely shared services between the participants. So we had a little bit of a presentation on this. We have Tricia here, who has been working closely with the Village of New Denver over our administrative practices between both, and also trying to find a framework that is easy to administer to allow this service to become more than what it is right now. But the budget is this as it is presented. I just want to I believe, and it's good to hear from you politically, but I just want to emphasize that this service really does, and to Leonard's, I really want to thank the village staff. We could not run this service at the costs that we do without the support of Village New Denver staff. So we really do need to understand that, and we are to Leonard, we are trying to make sure that the requests are realistic and that it's manageable, because definitely here, I think we've heard about the struggles of even dealing with the for the Village of New Denver with dealing with strategy for the cemetery and those kinds of things. But we really do, in order to keep this service manageable, it has required a high level of cooperation from Village of New Denver staff, and whether that was Lisa before or Ash now, just it does require that. It is, but I do know that even this is a stress at times on the Village of New Denver staff. So I just want to acknowledge that. If there's any questions on the budget or questions for Tricia in particular.
Yeah, Joe, to the chair, thank you. I appreciate that. It has been a daunting task, as we've all had the challenges of staffing concerns or whatever you want to call it. But, you know, it is, you know, it's come a long ways, and it is actually growing so much in all of its perspectives in this. So we just have to find a way forward that we can all reasonably live with and continue in this aspect. And I do appreciate the recognition of it, because it has at times been a strain on our staff.
And if I can add the appreciation of the village of Silverton, we recognize that New Denver is doing a lot of the heavy lifting on this, and it's tough, and we appreciate the work that you do.
Okay, I'm going to take that as everything is okay, working here, and there is a commission meeting next Tuesday. F231. So this service, if everyone remembers history, this service used to be Area H and Slocan. Slocan, when after the collapse of the mill and those types of things, Slocan through a consent from Area H, which happened to be Walter at the time, as well, was allowed to withdraw from the service. So now this is only the southern portion of Area H that is the area that's tax requisition for this service. In particular, this service has grown in requisition quite substantially over the years, but in particular because of the acquisition of Crestova, the donation of Campbell Field, and there used to be another service called, I think it was S214, if my memory serves me correct, which used to be a separate service for the old schoolhouse, but that has been rolled into this as well, with the demolition of the schoolhouse to be parked as a park. So there is actually considerable work going on in this service, and we are trying to rebuild the recreation programming. The recreation programming in this service was really impacted in two ways. It was impacted actually by a CBT grant, which offered free programming for 3 years, and then was to a society, and then of course was not continued, which decimated the children's programming in this service. And then COVID really impacted this service as well, particularly our ability to keep staff. Excuse me. So this is a service that we are trying to rebuild. Walter, I don't know if you have any comments for staff through here, or if Leah and Leonard have any comments, but if there's any direction, we could do that here, or we can just, what we've said is good enough for now.
Well, like in this service, we're planning a workshop, right?
Correct.
And to see whether we need a recreation commission regarding that, and or maybe a community advisory committee,
Correct.
like we have with water services. So on that workshop, we will discuss that and see what direction the commission members of that recreation commission wants to go, and then we can probably I don't know the process on that, Joe. You might want to expand whether we have to bring it back here to the services committee to do that, or where do we go with that?
Yeah, so through the chair, it's a great conversation piece. I'm glad you brought it up. So in Rec 8, what we've been doing is having discussions, Tricia and myself in particular, having discussions with that commission, and they are very much interested in turning into an advisory committee. The reason for that is that the advisory committee is less structured than a commission. They feel that will allow them to have the free-flowing conversations that they want to have in order to provide guidance to staff, versus having to be done through a formal governance model, which they've at times have found very difficult to maneuver and to negotiate. So we are looking at that. The way that that would work is actually the formal establishment of this committee would be important, because the advisory committee can provide advice. They need someone to provide advice to. And it would be good that they could provide advice to a formal governance model like this type of a committee. We actually do feel that there is advantages even for our park, what are called park commissions now, or even recreation commissions. The formalness of those commissions often causes the greatest challenge of maneuverability, versus being able to come together to have discussions on topics. And then there's lots of times very much a difference between a topic that a commission wants to discuss and a political topic. They can be two very different things. So our first crack at this most likely will be Rec Commission number 8. Unfortunately, we had a we had a commission meeting that was scheduled that did not have a workshop with commission that was scheduled that did not have quorum, so we could not actually carry on with the workshop. So we are going to have to pick that up once we get through our budget workload.
So through the chair, what does that mean for staff? Like, what does staff like? What process would staff prefer and be more time saving for staff, like going to like a rec commission or versus the other model you're speaking of and stuff? I'm just curious.
Well, I would suggest that I would say this. When it became clear that in order to hold a formal governance meeting like a commission became we needed to formalize it so much because of the Local Government Act requirements. Advisory committees are actually what these groups are doing. It is in reality what they're doing. It's in reality what Kerry does with, although he talks, Kerry and Jeff talk with them about budget, they're not the budget approvers. But they provide incredibly valuable input from the community about how the community are using those assets. So that is the type of way that we like to. I find that it works better when that part is separate. And as we know, these types of commissions used to be held and might be in someone's basement at one point in time, right? And that kind of stuff done. It doesn't stop, say, for example, for Rec 6, for the advisory committee to provide advice on on what grants should be approved, or to do that heavy lifting for a commission. But it allows them to have possibly more free-flowing conversations. And oftentimes they get caught up. Like the number of times that we get recommendations at those commissions, they're actually not recommendations. They're not recommendations at all. It's more things that are put into a recommendation that really is the recording of a discussion. So it has its place. It needs to be done in a very sensitive manner to ensure that that they understand that it's not about removing them from the conversation. I think what it also can do is actually lessen the workload of a director, to where an advisory committee can be a meeting between a staff person that's much less formalized and a group of community. And the directors can be the directors. They can choose to attend or choose not to attend, but it's not that formal type process, which is a governance committee of the regional district board.
Yeah, through the chair. So, like, would you have, for instance, just pardon my ignorance on it, is like, we have staff right now, right? Would you have this many staff for like Rec 6? How many
No.
staff members, for instance, would attend a regular staff 6 meeting?
So, for example, something like an advisory committee could even be assigned to a more, not to a regional manager or even to the general manager of community services. It would allow it to still have that, that conversation. Probably in some ways, like it would allow that conversation to take place at maybe at a level of where the work is more likely to be done, and that communication to be free flowing.
Yeah, through the chair. That's kind of what I was envisioning and seeing over time is that, they don't really have any power or strength in the budget process part of it anyways. But they're so valuable in what goes on there and hearing from the public, right? And I really like this, personally think, looking at this as this idea, where they can have a voice, which we really need. Like we can't measure that valuable voice, but so they get to stick to that portion of it and not be bogged down in some of the other areas. And if it helps the RD staff, that's just a bonus at the end of the day for me. I think we need to look at anything we can do to reduce the workload of staff and still be able to hear the true public and let them speak their true mind instead of in a more formal way where you might not be able to. Just my 2 cents.
Yeah, so just to basically, we have what we call a water advisory committee, a community water advisory committee for the Slocan water system. And we no longer have the services there, but it's an informal committee and it's generally driven by staff. Staff facilitates the meeting. Directors like myself are invited if we want to attend. We do also have a voice there, but we just listen and there's no real resolutions passed or whatever. The staff listens to it and then it brings it to the board for a decision. In this particular case is like in the southern portion, and correct me if I'm wrong, Joe, is we will work on Rec 8, and Rec 8 is, Recreation and Parks Commission established by the board. And that commission will no longer exist. The bylaw will be rescinded, and we will establish an advisory committee, Recs and Parks Advisory Commission for Area H South. And staff will drive the meetings, and whatever the community input is, and then the idea is to gather community input. And then it'll come to our services committee. And that's where we make the recommendation to the board. Staff will bring the issues that they discussed with the committee or the advisory committee, and they will bring it to our services committee because, Area H South, I'm the only participant, but, I would seek advice of the other members of our Slocan Valley Services Committee on moving forward with budget, etc. And that's where we would make a recommendation to the board. Is that correct, Joe?
Yeah, that's correct. And
something like that.
Yeah, through the chair. And what's really interesting, like Leonard and Leah, around that conversation, and Trisha, just jump in anytime here, but there was their enthusiasm where they saw that what they could where their advisory committee would actually become an open public invitation just to have a discussion about recreation and those parks that are in that service area, and talk, and almost, if you're just talking about Joe's little vision, and Joe doesn't have much longer for his vision to be meaningful at all, but it's that we often talk about how do we keep our communities engaged, and I think it is easier through an advisory committee piece to strategically plan how we keep them engaged, as of a more formal, like regular engagement process, which I think is really what people are striving for. Even when it comes to geese at Crescent Valley Beach. I'll just say that for some other staff members.
And Walter,
like, go ahead, Tricia.
well, I was just saying, Walter, sorry, through the chair, what I found really inspiring about the conversation with the group that Joe and I were working with was it really felt like they found meaning in this opportunity in a different way than being so regimented by a formal meeting. It almost allowed for more free-flowing conversation and free-flowing engagement with people, and but still an opportunity for them to actually get their voices heard, but also really resonate with their community in a different way and not be so confined by process. And I also think that they really wanted to almost have this sense of being unleashed in conversation too, like wanting to not have it be, okay, we're going to approve minutes and then we're going to approve like all these kind of like this hard and fast process of a more formal meeting where it could be more free flowing and then brought forward as decisions were needed to the a committee like this. But it almost got back to their reason for wanting to participate on the commission in the first place. And I think that was that kind of grassroots reason for wanting to be a part of your community and do something that your community would find value in was something that certainly resonated with me as to what seemed to inspire them.
So through the chair, we'll continue our work there. And if there, that's something that you'll see. But if you would like us to possibly start those conversations with our other parks and recreation commissions, we can definitely take your advice on that.
Okay, go ahead, Joe. Like what I was thinking is because this services committee in the east, yeah, Gary Jackman and the other two rural directors in the city of Crescent had this going since the onset, and maybe an invite from one of them to come to our meeting, or maybe even Stuart, because Stuart has attended all of their meetings, is how it's functioning and how well it's functioning, and it's working. And they don't have an advisory committee or an opportunity for the community input. They rely on the director to provide community input on that. But what we're looking at is sort of a slightly different structure here, and we'll start with a community advisory committee, and then it works to the services committee. We'll make the recommendation to the board.
I'm listening.
Go ahead, Joe.
Through the chair, I was waiting for you, Leah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so listening to the comments on advisory committee versus a commission, little points for and against each one of them. I think it's something I would like to explore. I'm really the main focus of it for me is how do we get the voice of the community into it? And if an advisory committee can provide a better opportunity for the community voice to be heard, I really like that. Because I think, there are so many layers in between the community and our final decisions. And I think that disconnect is starting to appear more critical, and people are feeling it more and wanting a better opportunity to participate without it having to be so formal. So I'm very interested in following this discussion and the move potentially toward an advisory committee. Thank you.
And through the chair, would echo that.
So when we look at advisory, yeah, go ahead, Lon.
Oh, sorry, Walter.
So,
Yeah, I echo that
yeah,
through Leah. You know, but if any of the other staff would like to speak on it, positive or negative, I'd love to hear it. You know, because at the end of the day, it probably affects you guys way more than it affects us, to be honest. And anything to make this more efficient is only in all of our interests, publicly as well. So, if staff wanted to comment, any of the other staff would like to comment on it, please. I'd love to hear you.
Through the chair, I guess it's Carrie here, and yeah, I mean, I've obviously been involved with commissions and committees for quite a long time now in our parks, and I absolutely agree with all of the directors here. It's completely valuable to have the input from the community. It's helped us with relationships in the community as staff, you know, in and outside of work, to be honest, and I think that sort of it is a fair bit of work on staff when it comes to a lot of the commission meetings that we've had throughout the regional district, and we have reduced a couple over time in parks. And the value really is in that advisory and kind of what's happening out there on the ground and what people see and some of the comments that we get. And I think, as Joe mentioned, you know, we do kind of go over the budget. You know, we talk to the committee and say, this is kind of what we see out there. But ultimately, you know, sometimes we have to make changes, you know, due to, you know, direction from the board or direction from, you know, commission members or sorry, commission directors. So I see this as a really positive way of moving forward to involve more of the community and more aspects other than just something specific to the park. And I will just use, say, Winlaw as an example. Over the years, you know, amazing relationships with the people there on that committee and commission. And it's gotten to the point almost now where, you know, we're only needing one meeting a year because, you know, we're meeting out there and we're getting things done. And a lot of the improvements that we have made are now just maintenance based at this point on. So I do really think that it's a positive step forward in the way that we do things in the organization.
Yeah, in my vision, you know, like the trial balloon will be at our next workshop with, you know, Rec 8 and Parks and see where we go with that. And then if everybody's in agreement, we will establish an advisory committee. And when I look at it, we'll have a representative from different communities on that advisory committee. You know, one from South Slocan, one probably from the Crescent Valley, Cristova area, one from the Winlaw area, and one from the, you know, Appledale area. Like there are certain communities within Area H South, and we will try to get representation from each community, you know, community on the advisory committee to have their input. And it'll, like I mentioned before, it'll be more staff driven than director driven, and director can participate in there or be part of it, but it's not mandate that the director is part of it. And the director's got a standing invite to be there and listen to what's happening and the input from the community. And then it gets brought to the services committee like this one. And this is where we make the decisions on what to move forward to and what to recommend to the board based on the input we received from the advisory committee. So, and eventually, you know, if it looks like it's going to be working, we'll move up north and, or maybe at the same time, and I'll leave it up to the directors like yourself, Leonard, and Leah, you know, if you want to follow that type of, I guess, process that we're trying to establish. And it, you know, you've heard from staff, it looks like it'll make it easier for them to work with the advisory committee rather than a structured process where we sit there and have to phone people to get a quorum so we can conduct business.
Yeah, I'm really intrigued. I think we'll hear more truthfully from the whole public that in this kind of forum. They're more willing to participate than, because if they wanted to get into a formal participation, they'd probably do what we're doing. They can have it, but that isn't what all the public is actually interested in. So I think it's being heard is one, and the flow could come back after our decision at this table to say, this is why we chose this because of the financial thing, and that being the financial part for them at those advisory committees, so they understand the challenge both ways. I think it'd be a great conduit.
Great. Well, thank you for that discussion. We'll continue our work with Rec 8 and we'll keep you up to date on how that's going. Walter, is there anything else in S231? Is there anything that you want to discuss here? Sorry. Oh, sorry. And Walter, you're on mute if you're saying anything. Walter, I don't know if you're saying something, Walter, you are on mute.
Okay, so I've got two computers going, so I'm trying to juggle from one to the other. So we went through, the service and the draft financial plans. And under new business, we already discussed the Slocan Valley Services Committee discussion. And we're at the end of the agenda, unless there is some thing that we want to discuss, and we'll call for public time. So is there anything else you want to discuss, Joe, or any members of the Services Committee? Leah, Leonard?
Just through the chair, the one thing I would like you to think about is if there's other services you would like not right now, obviously, but when you think of all the services that you participate in, personally, I was just choosing the ones that I am involved in at one level or another. But if there's things you're going, Joe, like this is another type of thing that we should discuss at this meeting. Just know that, for example, at Creston Valley Services, they use that opportunity to talk to the RCMP on occasion, to talk to the Ministry of Transportation on occasion. And this is where Walter's, I think, that invite of somebody like Gary, who's worked through that services committee for a while, to give you a flavor of the kinds of other things they deal with at that level might be helpful, and that doesn't need to take place in a formal meeting. But just know that this tool is bigger than just even these services that we looked at right now.
So if I may, what comes to mind is our Economic Development Commission.
That gets discussed there.
In terms of how it actually functions, the commission itself is totally dormant and has been for going on 3 years. And we now operate through a Slocan Valley Economic Development Partnership with the contract to Community Futures. And I think we need to take a look at that and streamline the structure around it. We don't need to be, dragging a commission along that is basically an empty shell, but we do need to figure out a way to have that function be continue and have the means to tax for it. I believe that that's a valuable taxation and does provide benefit to our communities. So that's one that I would like us to discuss in the future.
Yeah, so Leonard, you had your hand up.
Sorry if I got it up. I don't. Gotta try and find it. Put it down. No, I think it's great. I really appreciate this actually forum more than I find it more productive than a lot of them, to be honest. So I welcome as we work through this and increasing it to a lot more than what it is. It's great.
Okay, so yeah, what I'm looking at is, we can schedule our next meetings. We meet quarterly according to the bylaw. And we can schedule our meetings at this meeting here when the next meeting is going to be, but what will be on the agenda for the next meeting? And I trust Manager Shirk or Joe will provide a sort of an agenda, but if Leo or Leonard, you want to see items on the agenda, send them to Joe with a copy to me, and then he'll develop an agenda. We'll review the agenda and we'll have our next meeting. And so I looked at it, if we're going to meet quarterly, the next meetings probably should be May, August, and November. So any particular dates that we want to choose, or I know it probably depending on staff, when they can participate or whatever. So I would look at Joe. Do you have any suggestions for dates for May, August, and November? And, the November would be where we would discuss the budgets for all the services that we have.
Through the chair, I get Jenna back on Monday after leaving us for 3 weeks. If I have Jenna coordinate that conversation with the four of you, is that okay? And I saw a thumbs up from
Yes.
Leah.
Yeah, that works for me.
Yeah, I think I would like to add, though, I think August meeting would be a great one to drop, so that, because generally staff likes to have some time off, and I'm not sure the value of an August meeting would make a difference. I know our bylaw reads that, but are we able to change that to the November?
We can adjust our meetings as we see fit.
Yeah, so I think that we need to give staff July and August to themselves. They have enough, personally. And it's usually hard for everyone to meet.
So
Okay, so Joe, you're going to do a doodle poll then for May and November?
And what I'll do is I'll change what we call August to fall, but fall to the point where you're actually at least maybe even going over what is in the, like, presently right now what's in the 2026 and presently what the performance of those services are. So you start having that pre-budget discussion. The May meeting, I'll try and really focus on those services that you said, we may want to initiate some action on bylaws. We'll try and concentrate on that piece at that May. So inviting, for example, the ski hill to that May meeting, and the village of New Denver to the May meeting, would seem like two topics that, from what I've heard, would really want to be discussed.
I would certainly be in favor of that, Joe.
So the Creston Valley Services Committee meets. The Creston Valley Services Committee meets once a month.
Correct.
So, probably we might need a couple of meetings in the fall, like September and November, because we'll be looking at possible recommendations on different budgets.
Absolutely. So if we do May as this meeting where you've discussed some pieces, Leah, maybe it might even be something where I do try to figure out from Stuart, like, how do we bring economic development discussion that's meaningful to you at this meeting, there, and then maybe there, then you get a sense, you know what, Joe, like, or to mostly to probably to Stuart. Stuart, we really like this format. We feel that it would work, and then we can start working on how we make that more robust. So what I'll do is, right now we'll organize that May meeting. That will be Jenna's number one priority. At that meeting, let's take some time and what we'll do is we'll be prepared as staff to bring you potential meeting dates for the future, so that you can then really say, yeah, this is how we want to do it for 2026. Is that okay?
Okay, sounds great. Len, you had something to say. Wow.
Yeah, that works for me. And
Yeah.
if you could use my mayor's email, it would, because I get it on my phone. I'm not smart enough to figure out how to get to my regional district email on my phone, and
That's okay. Got it.
I am very electronically challenged. But so the mayor, I get on my phone, so I can answer it a lot better than
We
the
will do that.
And so, Leah, you're okay with just setting the date for the May meeting by a doodle poll, and then we'll take it from there?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, that does work for me. And I would like to see 2 meetings in the fall so that we have time and opportunity for real input into the budget and not just, oh, well, we have, 15 minutes, let's pass this budget. So, yeah, let's start with the May meeting and then make plans from there.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, and we're establishing a services committee, and there's going to be some growing pains and stuff like that. Like I was not prepared to chair this meeting at all, so we'll work through the process, and hopefully, when we get into 2026, we maybe should possibly maybe have another chair and do a possible rotation basis so that everybody gets an opportunity to chair the meetings rather than just have one person chaired all the time. Okay, so the next meeting we'll do a doodle poll on it. So I'll call for public time. We've got if we've got public on the line, now's your opportunity to ask questions.
On the
I'm just giving a few minutes here.
On the message board, the person identified as public says no questions, thank you. So there's only Doug, I believe.
Okay. So if we've discussed everything that we feel discussed, one last opportunity to have your say. Otherwise, I'll call for adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Anybody from staff wants to make any more comments?
Thank you. I just want
Okay,
to say,
motion to adjourn.
Yeah, just want to say I'm really glad that you found
go
this,
ahead.
that you can see the helpfulness of this. I think it will be helpful for many of these services.
I agree, Joe, and I thank you for prodding us on this.
One of the really good things about this is that we get to see the whole suite of budgets. And so we can see, add this on top of this and on top of this and on top of this. We can do that, or we need to dial it back. It's helpful.
Absolutely. Oh, and sorry. And one of the ones that is regular at Crescent Valley Services is updates from fire chiefs.
Oh, yeah.
Fire departments, just to be aware. It really does. I really find that, and Craig and Trish and those Crescent Valley Services ones happen right at Craig's. The meeting's over now, but just to make sure for the public. But I really do believe that things start getting linked together, just as you've said, Leah.
Yeah.
Okay, so who moved? We'll moved adjournment, but from what I understand from the Creston Valley, their meetings are pretty informal with the services committee, and they discuss a lot of issues back and forth, etc. And I think probably if we keep ours, informal, other than passing resolutions that we want to take to the board.
They're pretty formal.
Okay.
Sorry to Walter, but they are pretty formal. But I would say that the conversation, they allow that conversation to take place. Leonard and Leah know that there's often another counselor there that they often sometimes give almost every time give freedom of the floor to participate in. Sometimes they're alternates. So just know that I will try to arrange a time that Gary can talk about it with you as well. Thank you.
Okay.
Did somebody make a motion to adjourn?
I
Okay,
did.
Leonard moves.
Leonard,
Seconder,
okay.
second.
Harley, yeah, it doesn't matter.
Okay,
Whenever.
well, thanks everybody for participating.
It's all good. Thank you, everyone. See you
Thank you.
at the
Thank
next
you.
meeting.